transferred to the express line. I gotta get off.
Electric slide into the devil doors of life. Things are changing and it ain't the way I like.
On the replay, wish I could get a replay. Don't mean to hold ya, but I wanna do over.
Gas up the ship, shoot me a text and let me know when it is time.
I wanna get off, I wanna get off.
1 star, would not recommend that we go far from here.
I wanna get off, I wanna get off.
Stop the world. A music podcast for the culture. Wild, wild thoughts.
It's some wild times going on.
Yeah, we have some wild stuff going on. Well, what's up, y'all? While Damon's fixing his stuff, I guess we just gonna talk to y'all a little bit, I guess. So Mars, I guess
I'm back.
There you go.
I don't know what happened, man. I got kicked off. The hood.
Damn, you got the Drake treatment.
Okay, wait. Before we start, because I know we're gonna get into the debate. From your standpoint, how do you feel about Kendrick in the Super Bowl playing at halftime?
Me personally, I think Kendrick at the Super Bowl is the move. He's had the biggest year, one of the biggest artists of the year, with the most, as they say, engagement online. And I think people forgot that it's no longer the Pepsi Music halftime show, it's the Apple Music halftime show. So when it comes to streams, that's a whole nother twist, right? When it comes to streams, Apple Music, this is good business for Apple Music. So,
especially since he's been breaking records left and right.
Yeah.
Well, not just one song, not just 2 songs, not just 3 songs, 4 songs, actually 5. If you go back to like that. And at the same time, you look at all these reaction videos that streams are going up. Yeah. They want some of that.
Okay. That's all I wanted to ask.
Damn, Damon is I'll be sure moment.
No, that's not what I meant. Yeah.
We're having technical difficulties.
Game out here looking like the West Coast LL Cool J. Like, I gotta stop looking at him. I feel like any moment now, this motherfucker gonna start licking his lips.
Oh man. Yo, leave that man alone.
You know how it is. Like you're on FaceTime or something like that, and then someone freezing, and you're looking at your friend and all that. It's like, wait a minute, this is kind of awkward.
Just sitting there looking like, what's going on? Talk to me. Say something. Just froze.
like you okay? Let me call you. This is getting awkward.
It's getting out of hand. I'm uncomfortable. Call me. Shit, call me. I'm uncomfortable.
Especially if it like conks out and you catch a motherfucker doing like those duck lips.
Yeah. Like what? Like what's going on? Shit's crazy. Diabolical shit.
But I'm gonna add my 2 cents to it. Like, I'm happy. I think at the end of the day, it's like,
Because you're a big Kendrick fan, that's why, right?
I mean, yes, but stepping outside of that, like at the end of the day, it's like, I hear people talking about, oh, Wayne this, Wayne that.
Hmm.
And it's very interesting to hear, quote unquote, Nikki popping off and all that about, oh, they're disrespecting this legend. And then you have Baby saying, oh, they're disrespecting this legend, da 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 da. I'm like, where were y'all like 4 or 5 years ago when Wayne actually had $14 million in taxes that was due? Like, y'all didn't like approach him like, yo, let me help pay for that. Who did that? Jay-Z. The reason why, in my opinion, that they're all outraged and everything is because at the end of the day, they want to be part of the performance, because
Hmm.
performance brings in money as far as like sales of their catalog.
Hmm.
I'd rather them be honest about that,
True.
um, rather than just be like, oh, I'm outraged.
Yeah, it's just looking at the bigger picture instead of just going off just because of who he is and what's going on.
Right, and then you also have to take into consideration, when was the last time Wayne released something?
He got some features.
No, when was the last time he released something?
Oh shit. Okay.
Like, like, do,
Yeah.
do kids nowadays know? Do they even know who Wayne is?
Mm, probably not. Well,
Right.
I would say so, yeah, but not like how he used to be. No,
Mm.
the new age kids, I don't really think so. No,
Oh,
I think they're more hip to the little what's these new rappers? The new rappers nowadays. I don't even know half of them little niggas, but you
mm.
know. So yeah,
Yeah. So
and
I don't.
everything's TikTok based too. So they're they can probably look on TikTok and be like, oh, I know who Lil Wayne is, but
Mhm.
they're so used to the TikTok sound or whatever, however you want to do it, and the trap
Yeah.
music. So
They may sit back like, oh, wait a minute, that's the guest host from Undisputed with
hmm
Skip. If they
hmm
even watch that, So I don't.
if it even goes that far.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
All right, I'm back. I'm trying. I don't know what's going on, man.
You gotta make duck lips.
I keep getting, I keep getting booed out. So, all right. So the debate is happening tonight. What do you think Kamala needs to do to win this thing tonight? What do you perceive can be done?
She she needs to check that motherfucker. Cause he's gonna go off on a tangent. He's gonna be lying. She needs to just fact check him right on air.
So that's okay. So she has to fact check them, but do you think that will take away time from her actually like stating her points and take away from her? You know what I
Her,
mean? Getting her point across about her policies.
to be honest with you, I think if she is able to make him double back on the stuff that he's saying and look like a complete idiot, it's a
Uh-huh.
win. Because he's gonna stick to three things. He's like, I'm here to make America great again, and he's gonna say something. He's gonna just want to talk, talk, talk. He's gonna say stuff. He's gonna go off script. He's gonna say the wrong things, and once he says the wrong things,
It's
that's it.
over with. Yeah.
Because she will then pounce on him. She will have him elaborating on things in which and saying things that are outside of the scope.
hmm
And the next thing you know, he's not gonna think about it. He's
hmm
not gonna be able to understand and rationale what it is that she's leading to. And then before you know it, it's like, oh yeah.
Shannon says she needs to appeal to the middle class with tax cuts. I think that's very important. I think that's one of the things she needs to do.
Mm, I agree.
What do you think Trump needs to do in order to have a good showing today?
Shut the fuck up.
To be to be to be honest with you, he's gonna make it a show. He's gonna make it a show to appeal to his supporters. He's gonna act like an outraged, quote unquote, citizen that only he can fix things. He's gonna put on a show. He's gonna act like a character.
I wouldn't be surprised if he did one of them Hitler shits.
Oh shit.
I definitely think he's gonna probably try to pull her into identity politics debates about race and stuff.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's gonna be the thing that he's gonna try to do. He's gonna try to knock her off her game like that.
But I don't see how he would. I think that's a bad approach.
He's gonna
Well,
pull off some stupid shit.
we know he's not gonna talk about a lot of policy. That's not his
Nope.
strong suit.
Nope.
He's gonna talk about a wall probably. He's gonna talk about that shit most definitely. I feel like it.
Well, yeah, so I think he's gonna go hard on immigration, inflation, and
Mhm.
the border. I
Yep.
think those are things he's gonna go really hard on. So I think she needs to have a good counterpunch to all the stuff because of course, he's gonna really try to blame her for everything that's going on right now. He's gonna try to connect her to the Biden
Mhm.
administration right now. So
Well, they just said
she's
a
gonna have to
few
have a
minutes.
good counterpunch for that.
Curveballs.
They just said a few minutes ago that one of the things on immigration is that he wants to have a bloody, what is that? A bloody immigration reform, and it's like, what the fuck? So wait, you're muted. So it more attack the broken promises never. So it almost like you have to show like, oh yeah, violence is a norm for this president, not just what happened with the insurrection and whatnot, but he wants to, resurrect or bring back a bloody dictatorship. As long as you get him to do that, you have people looking at him like, oh shit.
Shannon said he needs to focus on the issues he finished from his previous presidency. So, Shannon, I think that's probably the ideal path he should take. But also, do you think that opens him up to some vulnerabilities for her to attack the things that he, touted that he was going to do in his earlier presidency that he ended up not doing? Do you think that opens him up to some criticism for like the border bill? Because I'm sure she's probably going to talk about that bipartisan border bill that he killed that was supposed to secure the border this time. So I know people want her to go low with him, but I think he can't do that. He can't get away with that. I mean, she can't get away with that. I don't think Kamala can exchange insults and still look presidential. You know what I mean? Because I think she has the hard task of being on here, looking presidential. Then she got to deal with that fine line of not looking like the angry black woman because that's what he wants to pull out. So it's like all of those things that she has to deal with that he doesn't. Like he don't have to worry about looking like the angry white man because it don't matter. He don't have to worry about telling the truth or lying because people don't care if he tells the truth or lies. He don't have to worry about explaining his policy because people don't care. Like it seems very one-sided when people always asking like, what's Kamala's policies? What is she doing as president? But they never ask what are Trump's policies? What did Trump do when he was president? Right? Things of that nature. So I agree, Shannon. Shannon says she can't go low or even laugh tonight. Yeah, like I think like I said, the whole thing is she really has to like ride this fine line that black folks have to ride, unfortunately. You know what I mean? When it comes to dealing with trying to be in a position of leadership, and especially like I said, as president, she has to like he don't have to worry about looking presidential, right? He can go full Trump and it's not going to affect his numbers. Like I think, in my opinion, I don't think Trump is going to lose or gain voters tonight, but I think she can gain voters tonight more than him. You know what I mean? Like I think her ceiling is a little higher than his, so I think it's going to be on her. She has to have a great showing tonight. You know what I mean? Like she has to have a great showing. And I know she's going to go hard on, women's reproductive rights, but I think she has to really go hard at the economy and inflation and how she's going to fix it and how she's going to differentiate herself from the Biden administration, right? Because everybody's saying, well, she's vice president now. Like, well, we know the vice president that's not the vice president's vision that's been put out there, right? So I think she has to go over and beyond, right? Because there's a lot of undecided voters and Pennsylvania is up in the air and they're in Philly. So she needs to get those undecided voters and she needs to get Philly locked in, get Pennsylvania locked in. Because it feels like based on the electoral map, Pennsylvania might be one of the most important states in the path to win for both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. So it should be starting soon. I think we got about 5 minutes. And once the 5-minute mark hit, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to flip it on so you guys can watch with us. Make sure, y'all can still comment while we're watching this, watching the debate. I might comment here and there, but for the most part, I'm going to try to let them do the talking so we can hear what they're saying and what's going on. It's going to be interesting, man. I think it's going to be interesting because I know she's been doing a lot of debate prep and Trump says he has not. But I do think one thing Trump needs to realize, though, is this is not Joe Biden he's going up against. And I think she needs to find a way to accentuate that he's the old candidate this time, right? Like how last time Trump basically was shining a light on Biden. I think she needs to shine a light on Trump and like how he's the oldest one. So
he basically saying he don't give a shit if y'all ain't paying attention. But I ain't saying nothing.
You ain't even got to be paying attention to see that that's what he's saying. You know what I'm saying? But again, like I said, she has to have a better showing than him because like his base is his base. They're going to vote for him no matter what. So no matter what he say tonight, he's not going to lose his base. Kamala has to gain some more of the base back that they lost when Biden was running because a lot of people were not excited about Biden running. So they lost a lot of Dems. And then she got to get a lot of those undecided and independent voters, to come over. And I think that can be the difference in the race because the race needs to be won on the margins. All right, let's see what they're talking about. Let's listen to them for a little bit.
Into Harris says she's for ending taxes on tips so long as the sub-minimum wage is also brought up across the country because in several states it's still at like 1990s levels. And so they understand in her campaign, at least, they've got to be talking about dollars and cents. It's those undecided voters, like the guy sitting there with Nicole Killian tonight, probably thinking about, how much are groceries costing? How much could my new house cost? How much will the car payments be going forward? All of that on the minds of voters. And they understand. Look at our poll. Look at everyone else's. He still has the advantage when it comes to who would better handle the economy. Well, particularly with non-college educated white voters who are working class. And that's interesting because he has the advantage in our polling, the working class and the wealthy. Kamala Harris, the vice president, currently is pretty competitive when it comes to perceptions among the middle class that she would actually deliver for them. And it's interesting, there was a lot made just in the past week. I mentioned earlier the slightest of policy differences from Joe Biden. It was, raising the corporate tax rate by slightly less and raising the capital gains tax by slightly less than a proposal by Joe Biden. It was seen as an outreach to the business community, to be perceived as less anti-business than he is. And her top donors, for that matter.
And her top donors. Let's check in quickly with Robert Costa. He is there at the debate site. Good evening, Robert.
Good evening, Nora. We've heard a lot about Bucks County, Pennsylvania in our CBS report tonight. I'm fine with that. I grew up in Bucks County, but talking to both campaigns, it's not just about suburban Philadelphia. The target audience tonight, that labor family in the industrial Midwest, in the South as well, in places like Georgia. Who's going to speak to them on immigration, on the economy, and say that not only are they the candidate of change, but the candidate of the working person in this country. And Trump believes, I'm told behind the scenes, that he can be the anti-establishment candidate like he was in 2016. So look for some of that spirit tonight from him.
It's an excellent point, Robert Costa. Let's check in now with Wylde Jang, who is also there, covers the Harris campaign. How does Harris make that case?
Well, Nora, she has been trying to make this case since she began her candidacy, and we'll have to see how she's able to distinguish herself. But we do know over the weekend when she was asked the one thing she wants to get across during this debate, she said it's time to turn the page on divisiveness and chart a new path forward. Well, one thing we'll be watching, Nora, will these two nominees shake hands? That has not happened since debates in 2016. And so we'll see whether she'll be extending that hand first.
All right, Wylde Jang, thank you so much. Up next, the debate begins. Vice President Harris and former President Trump take the stage. Our coverage will continue momentarily here on CBS and our streaming channel, CBS News 24/7.
All right, it's almost go time. Any predictions? Do we have any predictions before we hit the air? Any predictions from everybody in the audience? Hold on, y'all muted. If y'all talking. Yeah, any predictions?
Harris gonna put this nigga in the you know what I'm saying? That's how I feel. She gonna put this nigga in the motherfucking yeah. And they gonna be looking stupid. You can't win against bruh. Listen, you can't win against a female, nigga. It's not gonna work. Nigga, especially a black woman. It's not gonna work, nigga. It's not gonna work. Especially educated black woman. Nigga, good luck.
Man, all I gotta say is Trump's not like us.
Bruh. Not gonna win.
Like I said, I'm interested to see how he come out. What his energy is like, because there's two Trumps this so far this campaign season. There's been the super out of control, dropping insults, and then there's been the low energy. He mad that he got to talk with some sense. So I'm wondering which one we're gonna get tonight. Shannon said VP Harris will make gains. I believe she will be articulate and concise with policy and new initiatives. I hope she is, because I think that's her pathway, Shannon. I think she really got to punch home. You know what I mean? She got to punch home her policies, and she got to punch home that she is for the middle class, right? She's for the middle class, and he's not. He's for the corporations. I think that has to be the contrast in order for for any movement to really be made voting wise. She has to lean on policy, because that's not going to be a strong suit, and I don't think that's what he's going to be leaning on. So she's really going to have to lean on policy. So
I think what Michael Jackson say? You can't win. That
motherfucker didn't even want to go in the middle and shake her hand.
Tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump, will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic, and the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy. And the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. And now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime, a violation to their body, does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular, the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states. And the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart. And they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well, I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's the
question?
problem.
Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question.
you
Would you
could
veto?
do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden's?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. Where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents on the border.
First, let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there. And then show them the biggest rallies, the most politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people
I'm
on television saying their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things. By anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed, and I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier. So let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country. by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York, every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice President
to stop
Harris,
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot
that went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking, because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get
environment
to.
that
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
you. You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the president of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where Bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed. Mr. Those President, people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all. I said that sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they said
no
we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think
up.
we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters, because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, She hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation. And now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
I see her before I see you. All right, y'all. So we at the first break. Let me get y'all thoughts while we at this has been
what the fuck is he talking about?
I'm trying hard to like decipher what he's talking about. I'm trying to decipher what he's talking about and what's going on, and I kind of can't follow.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I'm confused. I'm trying to process what the fuck he's saying.
But it's just, I mean, it's exactly, well, I won't say it's exactly like I thought it was going to be because he's actually a little tame with his bullshit, but it's still clearly bullshit. A lot,
When he talked to Haitians eating pets, I was like, I didn't think he was really gonna say that on national TV. I thought they was gonna leave that to the fringes of the internet, but he actually said Haitians eating pets. That brings me to the point of they're already talking about brown people trying to make them look like savages. Now then they're talking about now going to the black immigrants trying to make them look like savages. Who you think they're gonna target next? Who you think civil rights they're gonna come after next?
China.
I'm glad she hit him on that border deal. And if I was her, I would go right. I'm like, all right, he said he want the border deal done. I'll get them Republicans right on the phone. Let's get this border deal done and get that border deal done. You know what I'm saying? Before the election. That's what I would do.
Nah, that was, you know, that was rhetoric. The Republicans already got the playbook, so she wouldn't get, even if she did want to do that. You know, they already know to stall it out. It's only less than 60 days to, a few months to the election. So they can just say, we'll think about it and not even say no at this point.
I'm trying to follow, man, but bro is like, I know what he's trying to do, which is they gave him talking points. So he's trying to get all his talking points in no matter what, but that also makes it look weird because he's just not answering the question, trying to get his talking points in. Because he's not answering none of the questions. He's just trying to say, his team told him, say this, say that, make sure you say this, make sure you say that. And he's trying to do that, but he's literally not answering any of the questions, especially when they give him a straight up yes or no. What's the yes or no question?
Like the abortion question.
Yeah.
That nigga went around that bitch like a motherfucker, boy. I was like, what are you saying?
But it's interesting because we have somebody who's a Trump supporter in the comments, and they like, I'm seeing something totally different than y'all. So that goes to my point of when I said earlier, I said, if you voting for Trump, nothing he says is going to change your mind at this point. So all he's going to do is confirm your biases if you're watching. But I do think, like I said, Kamala has a chance to get some Republicans. She has a chance to get some undecided voters, and she has a chance to get some of the youth vote with tonight. So far, I think she's doing pretty well with sticking to the her points. I think she's doing a pretty good job of articulating her stances, and not falling into Trump's like rhetoric traps, right? But it's hard because you try not to fact check him the whole time because he lies so much. So it's hard to debate with somebody when they're not telling the truth at all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, that's his position though. The truth is like you lower your expectations if you think you're gonna get any of that. But yeah, I thought she hit him a little bit more. But I think I was gonna say that comment that he made about the people eating dogs, you could see from his demeanor that was a spiral moment. He had to reel himself back in on this shit. Just, you know, you can tell when he goes off script. And what was the other thing he said?
All you see is a lot of deflection, a lot of straight up lies about stuff but like you said, like Damon was saying, he said if you try to correct him and all his lies so much, it easily will turn the whole debate into a fact check and find facts project. You know what I mean? And I think he knows that. So he knows that his base is gonna eat up all these lies. So he just saying it back to back. But like it's so crazy. Like he don't, I don't know, man. It's crazy.
I think my favorite.
We'll be back after this.
Yeah.
Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more.
Yeah, man.
what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship.
Much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe, like I did when I left, because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent
we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I wanted to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And
Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words. So I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspect
has technical difficulty.
Take your time. Take your time.
Yeah.
I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond.
President Trump,
No, the
President
former
Trump.
president has said
No, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry. We're
I
going
just need
to move
respond
on, Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this is
multiple
now
times.
your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it, pass his prologue in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
She made a mistake. At number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Well.
And let me tell you.
Well.
And let me tell you. Oh,
I don't know what you think, V-Ray.
Man, he's par for the course, man. I think that it was critical when Kamala Harris said, let's turn the debate to the actual policies and named a few of hers. And she ran out of her list, honestly, pretty damn quick. But at least she had some starters. And oh boy, don't even engage on stuff like that, because it doesn't seem like he has policies, or he doesn't have policies that he's actually invested in. So he don't have them as talking points. You can't freestyle on them because you don't believe them, yourself. That's my interpretation of that. But I think overall, man, he's just doing his normal dog and pony show. This is nothing new. They gave him some critical things, like you mentioned earlier, I think, to repeat and make sure he drove home and stuff like that. But it seems ineffectual to me because it so obviously dodges the actual question at hand. Like shit, are you hoping that Ukraine wins the war? Yeah, I mean, he just didn't even address that, except for saying he wants the war to end, but he ain't going to say anything that might piss off Putin or wherever his allegiances lie. So it's a lot of the same. It's a lot of the same thing to me.
I think she's doing a good job articulating her points. I think she's doing a good job bringing the case against Trump, for the things that he's done. I think she's also, I was glad she went back, like Shannon Perkins said. I'm glad she went back and talked about fracking because he just was lying, right? Straight up lying. So I'm glad she went back and said, yeah, and fracking and guns. And that was big because I think that's a big thing of them always trying to say they want to take guns. And I was hoping, because like I said, they say Tim Walz is the best shooter in Congress and he wins trophies every year. So he's a big gun guy. So I'm glad she was able to circle back around, let him know not only do he got guns, she like, I got guns. So everybody got guns.
Everybody got guns, nigga.
Yeah.
They ain't stopped making guns when they made Jordan, nigga.
Yeah.
But I'm really
glad she circled. Go ahead, V-Ray.
I was just going to say, I was really surprised that they haven't really touched on the emollients that he benefited from during his presidency. When you start to say that, like, Joe Biden was crooked and they took money from these foreign countries and shit like that, you did the shit in plain sight by hosting all these events at your hotels and charging the top dollar prices and shit, more than market prices and more than your normal prices and shit like that. You basically raped the country for 4 years. And so I think that would provide some balance for the storyline about Biden and taking bribes and stuff like that. So I was surprised there was no clapback on that piece.
Yeah, like I said, I think she did the best job she could going back and forth to try to address some of his lies and try to fact check. I think she's smart because she's fact checking the important stuff. I think she's trying to fact check the big things, right? Like fracking is big, so I got to make sure I say this. I think only place I think she farted a little bit, even though it was a good answer, I think she could have did a better job taking responsibility about withdrawing from Iraq.
Yeah.
I think that, but even that wasn't really bad. I just think she could have said something towards the soldiers, like, I'm sorry that we had to lose them, but I did pull out, then like, you know what I'm saying? I think she should have started with that and then continued to, because everything she said about 4 presidents said we was going to be out and we the first ones to pull out, like all that was great. I just think she probably, to me, she probably could have acknowledged the 13 that died first and then went into the spill. You know what I mean? But to me, so far, that has been her biggest faux pas, which is saying a lot, you know, because it could have been much worse. But other than that, I think a lot of her answers have been on point. When he said, "I have," what did he say? He have ideas for a plan, or
like you'll hear about it very soon.
For a plan,
because she said he don't have a plan. Yeah, she said he don't have a plan. So
she
I
said
think,
yes or no.
But he was even saying that same response years ago about Obamacare, that he will have an announcement soon about what the changes. And
there
all
you go.
that.
Concept for a plan.
Yeah.
All right,
President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight 2 very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us, and we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world. And from all of us here at ABC News, good night.
And that
Hey. All right, let's wrap this. You know, you got to be long to talk about this, but everybody in the comments, everybody watching, in your opinion, who do you feel like won the debate? I would like to know your thoughts. What do you think? What'd you say, Speed? No, he blocked me. Yeah. What? Yeah, he blocked me. He blocked me because I was correcting some of his false stuff that he was posting. So I'm blocked from his Facebook, his Instagram, and all that. Anyway.
Damn. Damn.
Yeah, that's what happens when you fact check a Trump supporter.
Yeah, she did.
Devon said she ate him for
lunch. Yes. Yeah. Most definitely.
I think she did what she came to do. I think she did what she came to do. I think she also showed he ain't got no plans.
So, in all honesty, to the audience, did he answer any of the fucking questions?
But you know what I didn't like? I feel like they kept giving him more time to rebut. Yeah. They kept giving him more time to like.
Yeah, I thought they would cut the mic like they were saying that was the plan.
They did not. Yeah, I think they was giving him way too much grace with just saying like, oh, let me come back one more time. Let me come back one more time. And then we'll cut her off. And of course, she going to respect the time. So she's trying not to go over. A couple of times, though, I'm glad she got her point across. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm glad she got a point.
That nigga didn't answer no.
Shannon said Harris won. I was impressed with her. She said I was impressed with her response to Israel and Hamas. I think she did really good there. I think that was a really good answer. It showed strength. She didn't back down. It didn't feel like she was trying to teeter. Like she straight up said what she wanted, and she said what she was on.
And it wasn't forced.
It wasn't forced, but I feel like she's been, because I think he used so much hyperbole tonight. It's hard to take him serious because he's saying everything he did was amazing. Everything he did was great. He was the best at everything. Every single thing he did the best at. And I think because of that, it's hard to separate his hyperbole from reality. Because in reality, his numbers in the economy did drop before COVID. Like his economy numbers were bad pre-COVID. You know what I mean? And then they got worse after COVID. The truth is he lost more jobs than the Biden administration and the Obama administration. That's just the truth of the matter. The truth is when he left, unemployment was at an all-time high. The unemployment rate was at a record high. So he kind of gets this weird reputation for being good on the economy and unemployment, and he really wasn't. Ken Brooks said Kamala won. She's a lawyer. She was able to articulate everything effectively. I think she did a great job of articulating her plan. I think if somebody felt like they didn't understand or didn't know her plans yet, I think if they watch tonight, they feel like they do. So, and I also think if people still saying Kamala has no plans and then at this point they're just lying and you just want to vote for Trump because she laid out a plan. If you don't agree with her plans, cool, that's one thing. But I think since the DNC up until today, I think she's done a great job laying out her plans, and I think she did a good job laying out her plans talking about small businesses. Trump didn't do that. I think she laid out a good plan talking about tax breaks and those family exceptions for newborn children. Trump didn't address that. I think Trump just didn't address a lot of policy, in my opinion. I think probably because the way she did it, he was on the defense a lot. I feel like she had him on the defense. So a lot of times he was just coming back at her like, but he wasn't saying like, oh, y'all want to do a child tax credit? Well, I want to do a credit like this. Y'all want to do woo, this is, she was saying, oh, this is what he wanted to do with the taxes, and then he would come out, like you said, V-Ray, not really answering questions and not really, sticking to the point at hand. And I think he was trying to rely too heavily on immigration.
Yes,
Yeah, I think he was trying to
absolutely.
rely too heavily on immigration and the border.
Yeah. Yeah, I that's what the point that I was going to make is that his go-to was basically the border and the infiltration of the people into the country. But I think he overblows it. I think that is kind of an Achilles heel for the Biden administration. But I think where he blows it is that he says all this over the top shit about how many murderers and rapists and criminals from these other countries and their crime is going down because they're sending all their criminals here, like they can package them all up and shit, and that's all we're getting. And we see footage of families and people with kids coming across the border, sacrificing everything to try to get in and all that. I mean, I'm not saying let them all in necessarily. I'm just saying that when he describes it, he goes so over the top with it, it almost deflates the fact that he could use that as a weapon, to address some of her weak points in her policies and shit. But once you start lying so much, it's almost like for somebody who might be considering whether or not to vote for him or Kamala, it's like damn near your ears turn off once you hear a motherfucker start saying, some over the top shit that ain't really based in truth anymore. Like if he's like, they're letting a lot of, they're letting the people through unfiltered. There may be 20-30% of those may be criminals or something like that. And that may be something more tolerable. And the numbers of the 11 million or 21 million or whatever you want to say are still 11 million, but you don't have to say everybody that's coming over, like 11 million gangbangers rushed the fucking border and shit, and they all got in or some shit, or then like, and they all have wings. If you look at them closely, they have wings. It's like, nigga, shut up. Now you just lying. You know what I'm saying? So if you undermine your own points and shit when you do that, in my opinion.
I agree, and that's what I said. I feel like the use of hyperbole tonight is what probably made it easier for her to win. Like him talking about Haitians eating dogs in Ohio, stuff that's been debunked. You know what I mean? Like him saying the shit that's on the fringe of the internet. To me, I think that's not a good look for him. And I know he probably felt like he was feeding his base. Like that's his thing. He's trying to feed his base. But he's going to need more than his base. He's going to need to pull in some undecided voters. He's going to need to pull in some disgruntled Democrats. But I feel like she probably pulled in some more undecided voters tonight. Just for the fact, to me, I feel like she sounded more presidential. I feel like she set out more of a plan, like an actual plan. She had more of a plan, and she kept her composure and kept her cool, because a lot of stuff he was doing, he was trying to get a rise out of her, and it wasn't working. And her keeping her composure.
When she paused at one time and said, "This former president," like she's gonna say, "This motherfucker right here."
Exactly. I think she almost called him a motherfucker. Like that's
yeah. But I love too the two things that she said that I really liked, and they were just insults. It wasn't policy or anything. But she finally said, "Stop lying," about when she was talking about fracking and guns, and she was, "Dude, just fucking quit lying." And then the line that 81 million people fired you and shit. You could see his response facially to that. Like if he would have been speaking, if they would have both had mics on, he probably would have really went off, off script on that joint.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm petty like that.
Yeah, I agree. With, like you said, probably your mom. I agree with what you said. 81 million people fired him. I think that's the best line, and I think that's what you're gonna see. That's gonna be viral. I think that, you know what I'm saying? Why were they referring to him as President Trump as former president? Well, Shannon, like in debates and stuff like that, they always, or even like if you watch like the RNC and stuff like that, they still refer to former presidents as president. Like that's the norm, honestly.
Yeah, just hear from that.
Yeah, the mindset, you just hate to hear it, but that's not unusual for decorum. You know what I mean? But like you. I think she had a good balance of getting some little digs in, some insults, and policy. You know what I mean? Like she had a good balance.
Keep it professional.
Yeah, like she's keeping it professional, but she was hitting them with the, in case you didn't read it in the bottom of the email, when you go off on somebody real smooth.
Yeah, exactly. love that. Like how to tell off somebody at work without fucking having to go to HR afterwards and shit.
And Demont talking about, he said there's people who felt, you know how they had what they've been calling double haters. I think she had a chance to get some double haters on her side tonight. The people who I don't feel like either one of them are good candidates. I think if I had to choose who was able to sway, I would say it was her. Exactly. And again, like I said, just because to me, she laid out more of a plan, she sounded more presidential. And there were times where he literally sounded like a madman, just yelling shit out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and you could tell like he was getting upset. So then he just started saying shit, start throwing out false numbers, start just making shit up. And, you know, like I said, I feel like she was able to fact check the big things. But if you go through, and I'm sure CNN or somebody is, and you go through and fact check every single thing he said, they're going to show that it's a lot of shit that he just was like making up. And but I'll be interested to see, you know, if she gets a bump in the polls from here, or if more people register to vote, or if she gets more of a fundraiser, you know, more funds get raised after this for her. So yeah, I think overall, I think she had a good showing. I think she had a good performance, man. I can't really knock her for what she did tonight. I think she did a good job. I think with all the constraints, like before the show, V-Ray, I was saying she has the fine line to ride that Trump doesn't have to ride, right? Like, she can't go off like how Trump was going off, because she can't look like the angry black woman.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? She can't just go low like he. Yeah, she can't take the bait and go low, because now she doesn't look presidential. So she had to ride that fine line of trying not to look, you know, like the angry black woman, trying to ride that fine line of making sure she got her policy across while trying to fact check him. Like, she had, I think, a bigger box that she needed to play in than he did. And I think she did a good job of kind of like working with the constraints that she had. I think she did a good job of bringing forth the things that, you know, she needed to do, man. So yeah.
I mean, I think our camp will be happy, and if she gets back out on the road and just continues that 1-2 punch that they've been doing, and maybe, in my opinion, man, I think she probably needs to roll out at least a good 3 or 4 more good policy bullet points that she's coming to the table with, because those ones sound cool, and then they probably are going to continue to do that. But these ones sound cool that she's bringing to the table now. But it would be good to hit in some other areas besides the economy. Maybe come back with a version of that border deal that got shot down, and give some specific points about that she would bring circle back to Congress on, and see if they can get that bipartisan support for it again, and something else, you know, some other 2 or 3 things that aren't these very specific ones, that the families things, which are great ones. But I'm just saying, you know, you can't come to the office with 3 policies to push through and shit. I mean, it's a bigger picture than that, but I'm just saying you need a wider agenda. And she seems to have a good camp behind her to help establish those things. So I'd like to hear some announcements on some of that stuff in the coming weeks. I think that'll help her get more of those double haters and people that are on the fence. Trump is going to keep the same storyline.
I absolutely agree with that, V-Ray. T-Rex, before we go, I have a question for you. Do you feel like you heard anything tonight that might help her get the younger vote tonight?
Yeah, she's basically going for us. She's not going just for certain people. Like, she's going for the younger community, the people that have sickness. She's touching on stuff that he ain't even have no type of. He didn't answer shit. Like, it scared the shit out of me. It's like we going against an evil character. Like, bro, like, what the fuck, are y'all hearing this shit? Like, are we watching the same shit? Like, I don't know, but she has some she has some fire points, man. I really feel like because she even going for people that need better housing. Like, come on, bro. Like, what more do you need? Like, it's all in your face. She's laying it all in your face, and she got the plans all in your face. But I just don't. I kind of don't understand the Trump support system.
Right.
Like, what the fuck is that?
Right.
It's not adding up. Like, nigga, come on. Like, no.
I think all of those things that she's talked about, though, the people starting families, the housing, and abortion, the biggest pill of them all have
and giving small funds for the small businesses and shit. Like, come on,
Yeah,
bro. That's
small
so
businesses. Yeah,
beautiful. That's beautiful. Come on, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think
But
that was big.
But I
y'all
think
want
something
Trump,
that
huh?
she should adopt too from Biden's plan is continue with the infrastructure rebuild that they've been focusing on. You know what I'm saying? That's a big thing across the country. Especially if you travel a lot, you see what some of this shit looks like in some of the cities and stuff. It's like, bro, bridges and that whole kind of thing. And
Not
that
just
was
what the cities look like, not just the bridge, but their infrastructure deal also included electronics too, like Wi-Fi in places that
electronics,
there isn't.
IT,
Electronic,
So that's
access to
and the chips, the chip manufacturers is part of that as well. That ties into jobs. It's a lot of things that are going unsaid. I think that have a lot of appeal. Anyway, I know I joined late, so I ain't gonna try to make it run long, talking, saying all my opinions and shit.
Nah, fuck that. Talk your shit, V.
No, bro. I just think that she did a good job. I'm just happy that like Dame said, she kept her composure, was able to get her points across, and I think by doing that, it magnified the fact that Trump didn't have much of those same things to bring to the table.
Yeah, man. So thank everybody for watching. Thank everybody for joining. Like I said, I think she did what she came to do. Tomorrow, we're going to get into Kendrick Lamar at the Super Bowl. And among other things, we're going to get into our usual tomorrow. So tomorrow will probably be politics light because we did it tonight. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about a bunch of other different things. And we're going to have fun.
Died.
James. We're gonna talk about him and his legacy, man. So tomorrow our super group is gonna be our favorite James Earl Jones movies. All right, that's what we're gonna do. So I got time to think about it. Our favorite James Earl Jones movies put together, or our favorite characters from him. So we got a few things to talk about tomorrow. Like I said, tomorrow's gonna be a more truncated, fun show. Might be quick, might be like 8 to 8:45 tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? It won't be heavy. We're just gonna jump in and jump out. But hey, thank everybody in the comments. I appreciate y'all watching with us from the pre-show all the way to now. I appreciate everybody who's in the comments. And if Quincy coming on real quick. Quincy had to come on right before you jumped on right before he's gonna get off. All right, let me hear your thoughts on the debate, bro.
Oh, if this was a football game, that was 42-3. She beat the shit out of that
analogy, bro.
And all the times I've seen Donald Trump debate, I ain't never seen nobody do him like that. And what I mean is have him on the defense the entire debate. Normally, Trump is constantly offense, attack, attack, and people. He have finished polished politicians, and since 2016 with just attack. And this is the first time where I saw he was on the defense the entire time, and it was crazy because we knew the triggers. His camp knew the triggers, and he bit that bait like a great white shark. Like I was like, the motherfucker forgot all about immigration. He want to talk about crowd sizes. I said, she got his ass.
Everything.
I was like, it was so strategic what she was doing, and it was like he can never get back from the crowd side. He was mad at from that point on. He was talking about how she wanted to do sex change surgeries on transgender illegal aliens. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? People
having abortions after the baby was born.
Yeah,
like, what the fuck?
Which is,
ain't that murder? What the fuck?
Right.
Yeah, it's not murder,
bro.
If the baby's born, it's not an abortion.
Ain't no abortion there. That's murder. I was like,
that's murder, nigga.
Like she had him so unhinged. And what I like, even her pivots, like he talked about the immigrants coming in, committing crimes, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, wait, since we speaking on crime, let's talk about the crimes you committed and been convicted of. I was like, damn. Then I was like, it was a match. Like if he should get the same treatment Biden got in June, to be honest with you. Like Republicans should be out and trying to replace this motherfucker.
Because he looked like a madman. Yeah.
And this was worse because Biden just came off old. He came off old and unhinged. And it's like even on subjects that he should have won on, he couldn't get there. He could. I mean, I ain't like I said. He has finished polished, seasoned politicians with his constant attack.
Yeah.
And this is the first time I've seen him like constantly have to defend it. And that's what I said she had to do to win. She had to put him on the defense. Not sit up there and just let him attack and attack and attack. Because Trump doesn't defend himself well, as y'all can see. He's not great at defending himself. I mean, even the part about race, I'm like, dude, she just said that you wouldn't run out the black people, and you just didn't even address that shit.
Yeah,
didn't
deny
it.
They
always bring up that stuff from 40 years ago.
Bloomberg agreed with me about the Central Park Five, and they said it was good. I was like, okay, but she said some other shit too, bro. She gave us about 40, 50 years of racism. And you just gonna go back to 1989? That's it. I mean, it was yeah, it shouldn't be another debate. That was very
They'll never agree to that shit.
I know he liked Russia, but in this case he was Apollo Creed.
Yeah.
that was brutal. That was as bad as I thought she should do, but you never know because I've seen Kamala like not defend herself well. It was if I have only one criticism, I think she should have fact checked him on when he said, "Well, before you came that you wasn't black."
Yeah.
I think she just should have. She. I mean, that's when she went into her whole spiel about him just being racist. I like the fact she brought up Obama, but I just wish she.
Yeah, I think she should at least said. I think she should have said, "We need to have a president who understands you can be biracial. I'm black and Indian." I think that's all she. I think she should. I think she should have said that. We need a president who understands that you can be biracial in this country. I'm black and I'm Indian. And I represent for both sides of my family because I think that'll hush a whole bunch of.
That's the only thing that I saw she missed on.
I think she missed on. The only criticism I had was that, like you said, and when they asked about pulling out of Afghanistan, I said I feel like she should have addressed the 13 soldiers that was lost and just said, in war there, we have losses, but I'm sorry about that, blah blah blah, and then went into talking about how we pulled out when everybody else said they wasn't going to pull out. To me, that one is a slight minor one. It's not a big miss. You know what I mean? But I feel like I was glad that she
I was gonna say I was glad she brought up the fact that he negotiated that deal with the Taliban without the Afghan government. Like that whole deal was fucked up from the get-go from the deal he made. So I was glad she addressed that. But all the counters that I would have used debating him, she used. I would think his camp would have had prepared him more to know that those counters was coming. It was like the first thing I would have told if I was in this camp, look, she gonna throw you off on crowd size. Don't bite that bait. I mean, he chomped down on that bitch like I said, damn. But yeah, she
I'm sure they told, but I'm sure they told him, Quincy. Like you said, we know his insecurities, we know his trigger points. So his camp knows the trigger points, and Kamala knows trigger points, and it didn't matter because he can't help himself. You know what I mean? Like his narcissism is not gonna let him stay on. Because like I said, my biggest issue with Trump tonight was one, like you said, he was on a defensive tonight, so his attacks didn't feel as vicious. Right? Because usually his attacks be like, oh, he be getting and he beat you down. He was on the defense. Yeah, so he was on the defense. So it just sounded like he was just yelling shit out and just trying to, like, look at them. That's what everything felt like the whole time. Just look at them.
Well,
I felt like
I don't say his best attack was on Biden.
Yeah, the person who ain't running. And she had a
Like,
good
you're
clap
not
for
running
that one
against
with the you're not running against Biden, bucko.
She
Stay
said this
current.
fella here lies a lot. I told you this fella
Victor
lies a
Still,
lot.
if you can remember, I'm the one you're running against now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul. Called a
Yeah,
nigga Paul.
it was like I'm the captain now. Yeah,
Like you said,
mean,
Quincy, I think the prosecutor came out at the right time. You know what I'm saying? That prosecutor and her came out at the right time, but then also I think she just did a really good job of selling unity in the country and being presidential for everybody. I think she did a good job because that will appeal to those undecided voters, that will appeal to those never Trumpers, that would appeal to those double haters that we had with Biden and Trump, right? I think the way she spoke tonight, which I thought she was very presidential at the DNC, like at the convention, I said she sounds.
Dang froze.
Yep.
See if you get back in.
Yeah, he is. He's gonna try to fix it real fast.
All right.
Maybe bugging
Well,
in and
I'll
out.
go until you get back in. I think I think what she had to show anytime a woman was in a situation, she had to show like she could go toe to toe with the bullies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
She could go toe to toe with the big dogs,
Which she did.
Which I think she definitely passed the test as far as that. What blew me away is man, how Trump is able to get away with things no other presidential candidate could get away with. He straight said he's been trying to get rid of Obama care for 10 years now.
10 years, yeah.
And then when he was asked, did he have a plan? He said, well,
Nope.
I have a concept of a plan.
A concept.
Yeah.
What fucking concept, nigga? Ain't no
How you
concept.
been trying to get
You
rid
got
of
a
something?
plan.
How you been trying to get rid of something for 10 years? And when you're asked, what's your plan to replace it? I have a concept of a plan. That is insane to me.
That's been his answer for the whole time. That he got some good ideas, and you're going to hear about them very soon, and all that. And it's like,
dude, no. If you've been trying to get rid of something for 10 years, you've been running on getting rid of something for 10 years.
Yeah.
You at least in that, especially when you talk about taking millions of people health care away for 10 years, and then when you ask, so what's your plan? Well, I got a concept of one. That's fucking like most candidates, they campaign is dead right there.
Yep. But it's Trump.
I mean, it's the craziest thing that I've seen. Like, I don't know what hold he has on people, especially like black folks.
Mm-hmm.
It's like mind-boggling what he could just say and get away with, and everybody like don't like. I'm looking on Twitter, and I see black dudes on there like, yeah, Trump is getting her. I'm like, what are you watching?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, what are you literally? What I mean, even one dude in the comment had to say, he said, "Come on, bro, let's be honest. She's destroying them right now."
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, he's the leader of the denial, so it's not out of hand that people that follow him, they have to have a subscription to denial to some level to even be able to palate some of the shit that goes on with the dude. I mean, he's still saying he didn't lose the election. You know what I'm saying? So there's some disconnect.
Yeah, man.
In there.
Yeah, it's yeah, it was this was like I said, I mean, we seen Trump put away some people, but tonight, man, he got
annihilated.
He got
But
annihilated.
it's like bullies, coming up and stuff like that. There's certain people that they can get, and then there's some people that just had their number and shit. You know what I'm saying? You can't push them around that way, and especially when your shtick is known and you don't really stray from it. You don't have levels to the shit. It's either I'm 100% on or I'm not. As soon as you punch a bully back, you know what I'm saying? They fold and shit a lot of times. So he's classic that. And she didn't really get him like, you know what I'm saying?
Like she could have.
Yeah, like she could have. I mean, she could have like the ball on his ass.
All right, so let's talk about it. Where was she gonna call him on that pause?
The president.
The way her mouth looked, I thought she was gonna say motherfucker.
I thought she was gonna call him a bitch. I said, wait.
This motherfucker.
But then when Dang said motherfucker, I said, you know what? She did say that's her favorite word.
Yeah, yeah, she did.
Remember, she did say that's her favorite word. So, because I was like, Doug, I kind of wish she had said it.
Man, boy, that would have been
little presidential
classic.
slip. Oops,
boy. This mother, man. Hey, I was waiting for it. Ooh, damn.
But overall, a good show. And I'm curious to see what the Republicans, not Fox or nothing like that, but just like what general Republicans.
They're blaming the moderators. It has already started.
Wait, blaming the moderators?
Ben Shapiro, Megyn Kelly, all of them on Twitter. They blaming the moderators because they was fact checking them. Like, dude, ain't nobody doing after-birth abortions. I'm sorry, like you need to be fact-checked on that. That's called murder.
Yeah, that's straight murder.
Murder.
He put the baby aside and then they asked for abortion. I'm like, bro, you can't take a baby out. Like, what is this, Game of Thrones?
I mean, if that's the case, anybody that kills somebody could argue that
that's abortion.
Yeah, 78-year-old lady. That was 120-month. 2,000 month abortion. She was in her 46th trimester.
And then the Haitian people eating cats and dogs. And I mean, you gotta get fact check on ridiculous shit.
But the fact that he would even draw from those fringe sources to be his talking points or part of his platform at a presidential debate just shows how the shotgun blast type of resources that he mines from, you know. You can see that just following his damn Truth Social account. But I'm just saying,
he really seemed underprepared. Because I think in the past he normally didn't have to prepare because he was always on the attack. And when you always on attack and you just throwing lies, I can just throw anything out there. I don't really have to prepare.
Taylor Swift just endorsed Kamala Harris.
But
just now.
Wow.
Yeah. Like her and Beyonce is like it's like 100 million each.
Sorry to cut you off, man, but I saw that breaking news go by like, oh shit.
It's like this is the first time he had to actually somebody made him defend his record. Like I've been saying for a minute, why nobody haven't brought up COVID? He fucked that pandemic up. Like he denied it for the first 5 months and said it was a hoax while people was dying.
Yeah.
Like I mean, he fumbled that. I mean, taking the CDC out of China just because Obama put him there months before it came. So I was really glad to finally see her say, hey, because I've been saying this for the past 30 years, well, 40 years, that since George W. Bush, it's been bad economy, Republican leave, Democrat take over the economy. By the time they leave, it's a pretty good or decent economy. Republican leave, we're in a recession. Obama take over, economy get better. I mean, Trump took credit for Obama's economy, and then we leave with a worse economy. So I was glad for her to say, like, look, we have to clean up your mess. We didn't spend the first 4 years cleaning up your shit.
And he had record spending. I mean, that shit, the trillions that he blew as far as when he was in office and the amount of government spending that went on, that shit set a record. He tripled the debt. I mean, it wasn't a triple, or was it? It was triple, wasn't it?
I think it was.
Yeah.
He tripled the fucking debt. Like that's another talking point that should be a deadly thing to hold him accountable for. You know, that I'm surprised doesn't come up.
He literally gave Elon Musk all them huge tax cuts, and it fucked up everybody else. But I mean, I think one of the biggest bars when she named everybody from his administration that said he was trash.
Yeah.
Like that's like your Secretary of Defense. Like she just lists a whole bunch of people that actually worked under you who said you was bad.
And he has no response for that. You know what I'm saying? There's no defense for that. When that stuff comes up, so it's like you dead to rights on that one, buddy.
Yeah, well, he answered no question.
Oh no, he ain't gonna answer.
Time was had by all.
He ain't gonna answer no questions. He was just throwing. He was just throwing BS out there and just hope it stick.
Yeah,
you could tell in the beginning he was intimidated by her because he didn't want to shake her hand.
Yeah.
Yep, he was scared. He didn't know what to do.
He knew it was coming because this is the first time, like, you know, I mean, there's a reason why his attorneys lose in court. Because when you have to defend Trump on facts, you don't win.
Nope.
Yeah, I think I saw this commentary that Jon Stewart had on his show where he talked about that. He said, like, there's all kinds of shit you can say, you know, in the public on in your speeches and on the internet and shit like that. But there's one place that shit doesn't hold up is when you try to roll that shit into court. Like, court is facts only. So when you try to come in and say they cheated on the election and here's the report and it's some dumb shit, you know, the court's throwing that shit out because they don't stand for the same type of hyperbole and these random ass storylines that he's getting off the internet and shit like that. That shit, you know, you have to have demonstrable proof in court, and that's where the buck stops.
Yeah,
so how thankful he was that courts exist.
Where I first noticed that was I was watching a hearing, and one of the federal judges asked Rudy Giuliani if he had any evidence, was he ready to present any evidence to show that there was election fraud?
Yeah.
And he said no.
Right.
He said, and then the same day, that fool went on Fox News and said there was election fraud. So I was like, oh, they figured out under oath, I got to tell the truth, which eventually got them caught up because they ended up lying under oath. That's why they all get indicted. But then on Fox News, it's not against the law to lie to the public. Tell the public anything.
Yeah, but they say that their shows are not news shows as much as they are opinion shows and shit.
Yeah.
So that's the catch where they can say bullshit.
They had to switch it to like their entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. And like comedians can get off saying bad shit because they put it as a parody or a comedy. These motherfuckers are like, we're like a parody of news. So we can say shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like Haitians eating dogs.
Well, it's time to sit back. Let's see what the polls say in a few days.
Yeah, I'd be very curious to see.
Normally the polls will come out in a few days to show us who jumped or who bounced up and see what happened.
Yeah. But honestly, I don't think Trump said anything that's going to appeal to anybody new. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Yeah, he just said the same shit he's always done.
You know what, man? At this point, if you watch this and you watch this tonight and you say, "Oh, that's my guy," I can't do nothing with you.
Yeah.
I can't do nothing with you.
Hey, well, listen, man, I don't know what Dame's technical difficulties are, but I'm gonna have to jam, man. But a good talking to you all.
We about to
indeed.
shut it down. I think just with Dame, cue the music. Come on, Barney, you gotta sing a Wild Bunch song because
nobody deserves that, man. Go out on a good note instead.
All right, man. Peace out, everybody.
All right, y'all.
All right, fam.
Good show tonight. Good show tonight.
Yeah.
All right.
Later, y'all.
Bye bye.